everyone. Welcome back to our podcast, No More Secrets. As always, I'm your niece, Katie Albrecht.
And I'm your aunt, Mary Albrecht. Well, we have a really uplifting topic to talk about. Talking about,
as per usual,
either near-death experiences or dying and coming back.
Kind of in the same general theme, yeah.
It kind of is, yeah. I think the listeners all know about cancer. We talked about my husband's cancer and how terrible it is. Well, he actually had a heart incident about a week and a half ago, and his heart stopped for 6 minutes. And it just so happened that he was going to the hospital anyway for doctor's appointments, like in the offices that are adjacent to the hospital. And he was feeling really awful while he was driving there, and his heart rate went really, really high. I mean, he didn't know that, but he felt like he couldn't breathe, and he was faint and dizzy. And he made a decision to turn into the ER instead of go to the offices. And he didn't even park. He went into the Circle Drive and got out of the car and kind of staggered into the ER. And he remembers saying, "I don't feel well," but then he doesn't remember anything after that until he woke up with like 8 to 9 people in the room with paddles, defibrillators, and they were doing CPR, and he could hear them saying, "I think we got a pulse. I think we got a pulse." And long story short, his heart flatlined for 6 minutes, which he was dead.
Wow.
He was basically dead. Yeah. And they just kept, if he hadn't been at the ER, there would have been no time for an ambulance to get to him. He would have died
which
instantly.
is a stroke of luck, I think.
And so what happened is, then he was obviously in the ICU and lots of tests and things. But what happened right then is that when he said he didn't feel well, they did get him on a gurney and hook him up to a heart monitor. And his heart rate was 240 beats per minute. He doesn't remember any of this. He had already passed out. Well, that's like pretty much your heart is going to shut off because it's just too much.
It's too much for your body, yeah.
And
especially when you're just resting. I think if you're working out, it's another thing, but even still, it's too much.
And I guess none of the oxygen and blood flow can get to other parts of your body, and it's just all erratic because it's in distress, and so it's not doing anything for you. So it just eventually shuts off, and you die. And that's exactly what happened. So she had gotten him on this gurney and hooked up this nurse, and then he flatlined. And then she's like, "I need some help, flatline, code blue. And then they got the defibrillator paddles out and they shocked him, and then they did CPR, and it was 6 minutes before they got a pulse back.
Which even, I think, another minute would have been too much.
Right. Yeah. I guess
if
after
I recall
4
correctly.
minutes is when you start to get oxygen deprived in your brain.
Mm-hmm. It's like 6 to 8 minutes where it's like you can become officially dead.
And then
pretty much.
If you are revived, you probably have damage to your brain, right?
I would assume so, yeah.
Yeah.
I guess it's different for everyone, but from what I remember being a lifeguard when we were taught first responder training and stuff, it's like 6 to 8 minutes and you're pretty much brain dead.
Pretty much gone. So yeah, so they got him back, and then he remembers, he couldn't speak, but he remembers hearing his, people calling out his name, Mr. Sullivan, but he couldn't speak. And so it was like another 4 minutes after he got a heartbeat back that he could actually speak to them and be like, "What happened?" kind of thing. And then they admitted him to the ICU, and then they did a bunch of tests, and it turns out he's got 2 completely clogged arteries. Out of the 3 major arteries that feed your heart, 2 are completely clogged. And it looked like his heart was hibernating. So they said that they didn't know. Ordinarily, somebody might be rushed into bypass surgery or get a stent or whatever to unclog those arteries. But because the heart looked like it looked dead, like the whole heart looked like it wasn't moving, but obviously it had to be because he was alive. They had to find out what parts of the heart were alive and what parts were completely dead tissue. So they had to do an angiogram for that. Wait, is that right? No, they did the angiogram and they found the clogged arteries. They had to do a cardiac nuclear MRI to find out what tissue was viable. And they found that his tissue that was being fed by those 2 clogged arteries was completely dead, which in a way is kind of a blessing because it made our decision for us that there's no point in doing a bypass surgery or a stent to try to get blood flow to that part. Because
I was going to ask you about that. So you guys didn't do a surgery?
we didn't, because there's no point. It won't bring the tissue back. It's 100% dead. It's been dead probably for a couple years, they think, even. So that leaves us with about 42% of his heart that is working. And they are going to just try to keep feeding blood flow to that part of the heart. And they did that with some medication and a defibrillator that they actually, like the paddles you were talking about in
The AED?
yeah, they got one. It's an implantable one inside his body.
Which I didn't even know existed, so it's interesting.
And it'll shock him if he gets too high. And if he gets too erratic, it'll pace him. It's kind of it's more than a pacemaker. It will act as a pacemaker if you get really low, and it'll kind of boost you up. But he doesn't have that problem. He gets erratic and he gets high. So that'll shock him if need be, or it'll just warn him if
it's
like
close or
close,
something.
if it's creeping up there kind of thing. So anyway, it kind of, I don't know, I felt okay about the whole thing. But then you realize, wait a second, he still has cancer. Like, he got over it, he got home.
Yeah, this wasn't even related to his cancer.
And it wasn't even related. And that's why they didn't want to open him up, because they didn't want to feed the cancer. So it was really good that we didn't have to
that there was
make that decision.
option.
Yeah, but anyway, so then he gets home and we're like, oh, okay, he's going to be okay with the defibrillator. Well, then you remember, wait a minute, he's still got this terminal cancer,
Right.
And so this morning, I've been fine since he got home, which was last Tuesday. But this morning he had an incident where he got shocked in front of me. I guess he had one other one that I didn't see, like while I was at work or whatever. But this one I saw. And all of a sudden he's walking along and he just turned completely gray. And the blood literally drained out of his lips and his
So you turned kind of bluish and stuff too?
White, really. It wasn't blue yet, but white. I don't know if blue comes later or...
No idea. It could be any of them, It's if you don't have blood flow.
Yeah, and he said that he got real dizzy. He said, I need to sit down right away. And I sat him down, and he just sat there trying to breathe, like he was out of breath, like he was running, And I just sat there and I just waited because I didn't want to talk to him. I didn't want to be like, are you okay? What's going on? I just wanted his body to do what it needed to do with the defibrillator. And he sat there for a couple of minutes, and then he wanted to go up to his bedroom, but he couldn't make it up to the bedroom. So he came into the living room and reclined. And after maybe about a half hour, he started to feel better, but he wasn't able to get out of the recliner for a couple of hours. Because he just felt so weird and so exhausted, because the defibrillator ended up, his heart rate went up to 220. So it got close to that 240 mark, and then it shocked him, which is like being punched or kicked in the chest. Like he jolted, like he got an electrical shock, and he's now in so much pain because he's like bruised, Anyway, the point is that I got really scared today for the first time. I didn't... Not scared, but shocked into reality that, whoa, this is still a really serious problem on top of the other serious problem. Mm-hmm. Okay. And really, he shouldn't even be alive. Like the chances that he was right there at the ER are like slim to none. And so you kind of start thinking, wait a minute, oh my God, he almost died. Like he did die. He died, and I guess I wasn't even thinking about it until this morning.
What was it like when it was happening? Was your response like, okay, I need to help, or was it just like, I don't know what to do? Cheers to the microphone, right?
Do that. I'm sorry, guys. They're both close to my mouth.
It's hard to get it right sometimes, I get it. But I was just curious, like when you see someone struggling like that, like what's like your instinctive reaction?
for Terry, I feel really bad
Yeah.
because he's a big, strong guy and he's proud. Um, he's not the kind of person that wants to be doted on. You know, like you don't want to go up and hug him or hold his hand or
Right.
cover him with a blanket. He doesn't like that. So
He kind of just keeps to himself and
yeah,
wants
and
privacy
so
and stuff. Yeah.
I just pretended like things were fine. I kept reading my book, but then he would like wake up again and say, "Can you get me some water?" And I would go and get back to my book and just try to pretend like nothing was wrong, really, because that's what he needed. And my heart was breaking for his heart, because he's already got terminal cancer, and now he's got this
heart problems
he's got
too.
this is a life-threatening heart problem that hopefully the defibrillator will take care of, but it doesn't always, and so it's kind of like, whoa, it became reality today. I guess I kind of thought, well, he was fine. He's lucky. He was in the ER. They saved him. By the time I saw him, he was fine.
Mm-hmm.
But today I was like, okay, no, this is now a chronic condition that we're dealing with going forward. And, he could either nearly die again or die again and come back, and it would be right in our home, So I don't know. It just it's kind of something that has always intrigued me about stories of people that die and come back. They even asked him if he saw a white light.
Or anything. Like, did you experience any kind of like afterlife thing?
And he said no, and then he asked if he should be worried, and they're like, well, if you saw like orange flames, then you should be worried. So
yeah, he saw a glimpse of hell.
Exactly. Like, okay, we'll send you back to Earth one more time to get it right, so you don't go to that orange flame side.
Yeah, I doubt it. He's such a good, solid person that like I don't see that being the case.
Yeah, no, and he's got a lot of faith too. But but yeah, I was thinking of talking about it last week, but we had Joe on and we talked about the frostbite instead. But then after this, because he was still in the hospital last weekend when we were recording, but this morning, it just really, I don't know, it just really made me feel vulnerable. And so I just said, how about if we have, talk about some things like the near-death experiences. I mean, you hear about them all the time with people that almost get in an accident. Like, that they're
life
just
flashes before their eyes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you hear that all the time in stories.
Or like, remember yours with the drowning thing, or not drowning, with the you got lost underwater.
Oh yeah, I felt like I was going to drown.
Yeah, that whole thing was kind of like, okay, I'm in trouble. Like,
that was probably my closest experience to like a near-death experience. Even though I wasn't dying, it wasn't like Terry, who actually was considered dead for a couple minutes before coming back to life. Like,
right.
I just thought I was going to die.
Gosh, but you had that feeling,
Yeah,
like,
of pure panic and freaking out pretty much. But
so we were laughing because we were going to talk about this really upbeat topic, but then Katie came in today and said that
I had the exact same experience.
It was like almost identical. It happened to her with her family.
It was with my cat.
Her family.
Well, okay, so let me explain.
Okay.
Matt and I were talking about getting a dog, and we were thinking about it for, probably a year or so. It's been in the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a friend of a friend, or it was like a friend's family member who fosters dogs and had this really sweet dog available that was really cuddly and affectionate. I was like, this sounds great. Lando, our cat, is also an affectionate animal, and he likes dogs, so maybe this will work out. So we had this dog come and meet everyone and kind of see if it was a good fit and everything. And we left Lando upstairs at first. And the dog, as promised, came up to us, was cuddly and affectionate, was like kind of licking our faces and just kind of, like cuddled up next to us and everything. And it was really sweet. And we're like, okay, I can see myself falling in love with this dog, And we decided to bring Lando down. and he gets a little bushy-tailed. Like he sees the dog, gets the arched back and
Sure.
little bushy-tailed.
Yeah.
But he wasn't swatting, he wasn't hissing or anything. He let the dog approach him and was like sniffing him and
Oh.
was how he normally acts with dogs. That from what I've seen, he's usually pretty good with them. But then as they were sniffing each other, the dog all of a sudden tried to snap at his neck, at Lando's neck.
Like tried to actually get him
Tried to
with his jowls.
Yeah, he tried to. I think
Like
he tried to kill
go
him.
for the kill.
I think he was trying to go for the kill.
Oh, okay.
At least in my impression, and it. Fortunately, Matt was right there, and he kind of yanked the dog back. Lando went to the other side of the room, hid behind a chair, I think, and they just kept staring at each other. We were like, okay, maybe that was just a one-time thing. But this dog was locked in on Lando, and it was
like salivating almost.
like basically once she had the opportunity, she would have done it.
I want to eat that cat.
She would have done it, yeah.
Wow.
And I was told you're not supposed, if a dog's like fixating on your animals or your cat or your other dog or whatever, you kind of have to be cautious about it.
Okay.
So it was after 10 minutes, it wasn't letting up. So then we decide as Matt restrains the dog, I took Lando. He's sitting there shaking in my arms, terrified for his life, pretty much. And we put him upstairs behind a closed door because it was. We're like, this dog even still was trying to follow me upstairs and like get at him and stuff.
Wow, I wonder what happened.
I'm not sure.
That
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Maybe he's never met a cat, or she. Is it a she dog?
It's a she dog.
Okay.
She was a mom at one point too, but yeah, I don't think she's ever seen a cat, or she just has a high prey instinct
for anything smaller,
anything small or something. Yeah. So it didn't work out. Clearly, this is the same as your husband dying of cancer and heart failure. Yeah, I mean,
she had her own near-death experience,
of my family member, of
your
my
kid. It's your kid.
It was alarming. It was like I didn't expect. I'm not as I've grown up with dogs too, but I'm more familiar with cats and how they get aggressive with other animals and stuff. And I just wasn't expecting the dog to go for the bite,
especially being in it's not her territory. She was in a foreign house, and she thinks she would be scared almost.
No, she was like, we had to really hold her back to stop her from getting Lando, and it was alarming because I was like, wow, that could have gone completely different. What if Matt wasn't there to yank her back? Like it's just.
And then what do you do? Oh my God, you're like trying to shake the. And you don't even want to think about it.
And right? I feel like I need to preface, like, it's obviously this is not the same as like your spouse or your family member or your a person, but losing a pet,
it's almost worse though.
Terrible,
because they're so innocent and they trust you, and
I put him in this position. I was like, I brought this dog over,
Yeah, and they're just so, and especially a cat, they're so small, and they just really, really rely on you. It's scary, yeah. And cats, I mean, they don't piss you off, through the years. With humans, you have arguments and things, but the cats, it's just this pure love, or animals in general.
Yeah. And when it's like Lando's my only thing that I take care of, and it's like it's kind of like my kid in a way, because I don't have any other pets or kids or
Now, to be fair to you, you said that Matt was closer.
Yeah.
And
well, that's what I felt bad about, because that's why I asked you, like, what was your instinct like when you saw Terry like that? Because when I saw Lando, I didn't react fast enough, and thankfully Matt did, but I didn't.
But maybe it must have been a split second.
It was really quick.
So maybe you would have had the dog gotten even an inch closer or something. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
You don't really know. You didn't react as fast as Matt, but that doesn't mean you wouldn't have reacted if Matt hadn't.
Yeah. I mean, I would have hoped to have reacted differently, in that kind of situation, but I didn't,
So he
was okay, but.
And did the foster mom take the dog back then?
She did, yeah. And it's nothing against the dog or her. That just wasn't a good fit. Some dogs aren't meant to be with cats. Some cats aren't meant to be with dogs. I don't think Lando is that type of cat, but I don't with that particular dog. It wasn't.
It just
the
didn't work.
case.
And
But this also happened this morning too. So like we're in the exact same situation, right?
it's so similar. I mean, if Lando hadn't been near the ER, which in this case was Matt,
Yeah, the ER, the Matt ER. Yeah,
and then the dog would be the heart problem.
pretty much. Yeah.
I mean, it's really comparable.
It's so laughable that it's like I'm even comparing this, but
No, but I guess where it leads me, and this is where it comes to the mental health aspect, is that every time something remotely, happen, like meaning you hear about it, or it's your cat, or it's your husband, like it could be remote, it could be the story over there, it could be on the news kind of thing, or it could happen to you. But every time it puts a chip in the vulnerability scale, like you start to really realize how really actually all the things that go right, because any second you can die,
literally
and
within a second. Yeah.
within a second. And so you start, I think it shook me up. It sounds like it shook you up, because all of a sudden you just feel like, whoa, bad things can happen like that. And like you could just be going along, you're not, and it just like you fall off a cliff, you get run over by a bus, anything. Your
Right.
heart can shut off, an animal can eat you.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to laugh at the animal eating. you.
Well,
Just-
I mean,
I was just thinking about, my animal almost getting eaten or whatever. But it's just
it's traumatic though. It is, and it's sad, because now what's going to happen with the next dog you bring over. Like I don't know, just
right. Can we get a dog now? I
I
don't
don't
know.
know. Yeah,
Who knows if that's the case or not? But or just, I think it's kind of interesting when it's not only near death experiences for yourself, but there's also like a lot of trauma that's involved when watching someone go through a near death experience too, or
Yeah.
something, or like a pet, or something like that. It's very traumatic. It's hard to deal with.
yeah. I had a client who was in a car accident. Well, kind of. He ended up going off the shoulder, but he was driving along and he could see a truck in his rearview mirror, and all of a sudden up ahead the cars were braking in front of him, and he started to brake, but he could see that the truck guy was just like looking off to the side, not really paying attention to the road, and he just felt like this truck is going to rear end me unless because he's not seeing that we're all braking. And so he took a chance and just went over a lane and ended up going into the ditch on the shoulder or whatever. And right then the truck slammed on its brakes before the car in front of him and ended up rear-ending that car, but just a little bit because it slammed on its brakes. But the space that my client was in was gone. Like he didn't brake until he got to the next car, which means if he hadn't gone right, he would have been crushed like an accordion. He would have just been like that.
Interesting.
And that shook him up, because again, all of a sudden you start to really feel vulnerable, like you're just driving along and you're supposed to be trusting this person in your back seat or back seat, backyard. No, back rear view behind you.
In your backyard. This is my car's backyard, everything, the whole highway.
The whole highway is my car's backyard. And so, yeah, I mean, there's things like that happen all the time. People that, they just near misses, I guess.
Well, think about our guest Sam from a couple seasons ago.
Okay, there you go. Yeah.
How he was in his car. It was like a convertible, and he got chopped up by what was it, barbed wire?
Yep.
Like the barbed wire, like kind of sliced up his whole face.
I mean, it nicked his
neck.
carotid artery too.
But he was lucky enough that he was in the car with someone else, and they didn't get hurt. But also they were able to like call an ambulance and kind of keep him under, keep pressure on his wound and everything when he was coming in and out. And like if that guy wasn't there, would he have survived?
Right. I doubt it, because
Who
there was so
knows?
much blood loss, even with the tourniquet he did, or with the pressure he
I think
did
you can't apply a tourniquet to your neck. I don't
on
think.
barbed wire.
But yeah, but I do
But he
think
applied pressure.
he did apply pressure. I remember him saying that he was like holding it there and called 911 and because Sam was coming in and out. He wasn't. He was conscious, but he wasn't really with it.
He would have lost it. He would have died, I'm sure, if he was alone.
Yeah, and it's just another situation. It's like a near death thing.
Well, and then you have the longer term concept of near death with cancer, in that. So our guy that was on
It does
Travis,
it adds a timeline on.
yeah, and he was just saying today, because he just came here to help set up the cameras, and he was the one that was our guest talking about his testicular cancer, and he said it's changed him permanently, from facing cancer at age 26, and now he's cured, but he's a different person. Like, he's more confident. He doesn't want to waste a day. He wants to live his life, that kind of thing. So you confront death in different ways. It's not just having to be, a heart attack or
Like a split second thing.
It could be overall. And it, in a way, it's kind of good to maybe one of the points of this episode can be to, really think about all that goes right on a daily basis. If you think about it, our heart is always pumping.
Look at you being all optimistic.
I know. I'm a hopeaholic, remember?
Look at us. I feel like we're actually got a little bit of a... This isn't as dark of an episode as we thought it was going to be.
Okay, and so now that you bring that up, when I first found out I was anemic, my hemoglobin was 4.4. And it's supposed to be between 12 and 14. And I was slowly dying. I was slowly bleeding out. My body was just losing blood very slowly. So it wasn't like I didn't pass out, but it was enough that I would have died had I not gotten blood transfusions. And meanwhile, my legs were aching and I was out of breath, and I kept thinking, oh my God, I must need more exercise because I'm really out of shape, kind of thing, when really I'm bleeding to death in a very slow way. And I finally went to the doctor and I said, I don't know what's wrong. And they took the blood and they found out that my hemoglobin's 4.4, and they're like, you need to go to the hospital right now. So I woke Terry up because it was like early morning when she called, and he took me, but he dropped me off, as opposed to getting a wheelchair or whatever. And I remember walking in, and like all of a sudden my legs wouldn't work. Like, I couldn't get them to move because I didn't have enough blood flow. And then the ER people said, I've never seen somebody walking with a 4.4 hemoglobin. Like, how did you do that? And I'm like, I don't know, whatever. So when that happened, I started thinking that weekend, and I even wrote an article about it, which maybe I could resurrect that article and we could put it on our either Mary's Corner or the blogs or whatever. Because I wrote an article called All That Goes Right. And that weekend I got 3 units of blood, and I stayed for 3 days. And I thought about, if you think about it, look at what your body's doing on a regular basis. Here I am bleeding out for probably a year, and my body's compensating, and then in general, look at everything that it does on a daily basis that we just take for granted, and how many times are there near misses? Do we even know our near misses? Like,
we probably don't.
Exactly. Like, maybe there's a plane that, went down earlier because, it, got, instead of hitting you or whatever, meaning that.
It's interesting you say that. I just remembered another time where I was driving to work, and I was running late, as per usual, that kind of thing.
I mean, gosh, we don't ever run late.
Yeah, this wasn't even at the current job. This was like a couple jobs back. And I was at a T intersection, and I was trying to turn left. And I got caught at the light, and I'm like, I hate getting stuck at this stupid light. It takes forever. You know what I mean? Like, we all have those spots.
Yeah.
And I got caught at the light. And then as I was sitting there, like, kind of mad, I watched a car come through the intersection and hit the car that was like directly in front of me, that like caught the light but I didn't, and slammed right into them.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so I was like, oh,
Whoa.
okay, so maybe there was a reason for me to not be at this, like, go through that light when I wanted to, you know. It's the concept of like everything does happen for a reason. Like sometimes the things that you want to happen don't happen because it was actually protecting you, you know.
Yeah, see, we don't really understand the big picture, right?
Nope.
What about people that they miss their flight and then that plane crashes? You know, you hear about things like that. They should have been on that plane, but they ended
Oh,
up
with
missing it, or like,
9/11, there was all sorts of stories like that.
like
Yeah.
where people should have been in that building, but they got
Yeah.
sick or whatever. You know,
Yeah, they worked there, they got sick, they didn't come in that day. Like, or the flight was delayed or something like that, where it's kind of incredible that they actually avoided that, you know.
so in a way, it's kind of amazing that we don't all die sooner. If you
Okay.
think about it.
Bringing it back to the dark side again, huh?
If you want to call it that. I mean, if you think about it, like the way life sustains itself, you know, like,
Yeah.
you know, you just want to, I guess you just want to stay alive. Like the fact that Terry chose to go right instead of left, or left instead of right. He went left to the ER instead of right to the offices. And he remembers being so sick, but thinking, oh, I don't want to blow off my appointments because they're all waiting for me. But meanwhile, he's dying.
Instinctually,
you know?
his body takes him to the ER.
And
Yeah.
right, and instinctually he was turning left into the parking lot that could have gone either to the offices or the ER, and there was one car coming that normally he would have waited. It was an oncoming car, and normally he would have waited to let it pass and not turn in front of it. But instinctually he remembers thinking he didn't have those 10 seconds to spare to let that car pass. So he turned in front of it. It put on its brakes. It honked. It swore. You know, he doesn't know exactly what, but he could see that driver was angry.
Mm-hmm.
But he just felt like I got to go now. I can't. You know.
And when you're talking about near death, I mean, minutes, seconds count.
Right.
You know, like even if you were to let that car pass him, he probably it would have been too long.
I think it would have, and then he would have died, you know, in the parking lot or right there on the street, and then you can hurt other people too.
Oh yeah, if
So,
you're driving and you
yeah.
pass out, I mean, that could mess up another person that you hit or
So
something like
again,
that,
all
you know?
all that goes right. Like he didn't have the heart attack 10 seconds sooner and kill somebody else.
He got himself into the place where he knew that he was going to get taken care of.
Right.
Like, obviously, people in the ER are going to be like, "Oh, you're passed out. I'm going to make sure that you're breathing." You know, like it's literally the best place for it.
It was amazing. It really was. So,
Yeah.
and you know, I guess you could call him lucky, but then there's times when you're like, but that really sucks for him because the poor guy is trying to fight this terminal cancer.
I mean, it's not pretty. Yeah.
And it's really not a good situation with this defibrillator. It's better than nothing, but he definitely has heart disease. He didn't even have a heart attack. They said his heart responded as if he had a heart attack, but it just shut off. It had too much. So the heart attack didn't shut the heart off. It just shut off. So it's the same end result. And
It's scary.
so, you know, it just makes me feel vulnerable. I think that's how I was feeling today. Like, I didn't think that I was really, you know, of course I stepped up and I was strong for him. But then later, kind of maybe how you feel. And seriously, oh my God, it would break my heart to
I know, because you get it
mean,
because you're a pet owner and stuff, but it's
any being, though, shouldn't have to suffer or be scared or whatever, you know.
But you know how it is, like when you're talking about like a traumatic incident and then someone's like, "Oh, well, I had this." You know what I mean? Like, and they try to compare situations. Like, it wasn't me comparing at all.
It wasn't even close.
No, and we
We
talked
joked about it. I
beforehand.
said, well, we are talking about near-death experiences today, so we
Perfect.
can
Yeah.
throw Lando into the mix. Poor guy, though. He would have died. I think he would have been killed
if
by
we
that.
let that dog have
that
free
dog.
reign, it would have. And there's nothing against that dog. It's just that was that particular. It was its instincts towards the animal, you know, towards Lando.
Wow. Yeah, and it makes you feel, it shakes you up, right?
Yeah, I'm still thinking about it, and I got like a little bit emotional after I like sat and thought.
After it goes away, after the threat is gone. Like at first, you
Yeah,
probably had adrenaline, right? And you're like, "Holy shit!" and
I
whatever. And
I totally did, and then I was also the person was still there, so I was trying to like I didn't want her to feel bad, which is ridiculous, you know.
the
The foster
person,
person,
okay,
yeah,
not the dog.
not the dog. Yeah, I mean like because I didn't want her to feel bad for like the dog trying to attack Lando and everything. It's I don't know. It was just a weird thing. But then afterwards, I was like, wow, he that could have gone really bad. And
When you realize later, and that's what I think is hitting me, because it didn't it hit me a little bit after he got home from the hospital, but he seemed so fine that I didn't see the weak side, because by the time I got there, he was already all hooked up and stable in bed. So to actually see it happening really made me feel vulnerable, but at the time I stepped up, but then when I got here, all of a sudden I just started to feel like just really like tired, first of all.
yeah, like
And
the adrenaline wears off, and
and
you're
then you just feel
exhausted.
tired,
Yeah,
and then you realize, holy shit, this actually could have happened. Like he could have died.
yeah,
And same with Lando and whatever and anything. Like when you get near an accident, or get close to having an accident, but you don't, and then later on
yeah,
when the adrenaline, I just don't think it's normal to just be like, okay, well that was lucky. No, it's like, no, it's actually scary too.
yeah,
There's PTSD that goes with it for sure.
yeah. It's crazy. I think for the person and then also the witnesses, like the loved ones and stuff. If you almost lose a family member, it's I think just as alarming, if not maybe just like different, different type of trauma that you get from it.
Yeah, but, I guess I went up to show him something. I forgot what it was because he was still laying on the recliner, and I showed him, and he said that my hand was doing this, and I didn't notice. He goes, "Mary, you're shaking." He's like, "Don't worry, I'm going to be okay." I go, "I'm not shaking." And he goes, "I can see why you're scared." And I said, "I'm not scared." And he goes, "Well, I would be scared." I said, "What?" And he said, "Well, meaning if I were watching you in the same situation, I would be scared." He's like, "I'm not scared for myself," which I don't believe. But he said that. But he said he would be scared watching your loved one being so compromised and not knowing what
That's really
to do.
that's really kind of sweet. I know that it's like a terrible situation, but I know you were saying with this whole cancer thing that you guys have almost gotten a little bit closer in a way.
Yes and no, because he also keeps a lot from me.
He doesn't. I don't think he tells you how much pain he's in and
Right.
all that. Yeah.
Like when he first, I think we've talked about how you minimized for many years about your dad.
Yeah.
It really wasn't. He wasn't the nicest person.
he
You know?
he had some problems.
Occasionally he would be, a little erratic or frustrated. Remember last week with Joe when you asked if he was frustrated when he couldn't get into the pillbox again when we got that locked box for Grandma.
Yeah, but
And
it was
then-
more like it was like a whodunit thing. I was like, did he act differently than he normally does about it?
But Joe's like, what? Ken, moody, frustrated, flying off the handle. How would you know the difference?
I know.
Kind of thing. So,
Yeah.
But anyway, so kind of the same thing. You would minimize his situation. Well, Terry minimizes problems,
Yeah.
and in some ways, all through his life, it's actually hurt him because he he might be like, well, I can rebuild that house for this much money, and it's all going to be fine. And then he would like not make as much money or lose money on a job. But with the cancer, it actually is really good because it gives him a really positive attitude. Like he's like, it's going to take more than this to kill me, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, but when he first told me that he was in the ICU with this current condition, this heart problem, he said I had a little incident, and they thought they should keep me overnight for observation. That's what he said to me.
Wow.
Well, when I get there, I look him up. He's in the intensive care unit, and then I get upstairs. He's all hooked up to paddles and They had paddles taped on him permanently because if it happened again, they wanted to be able to shock him right away.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay. what happened? He goes, well, my heart, I had AFib and it went crazy and da-da-da, but they got me back and they do an angiogram tomorrow. It wasn't until 2 days later that a nurse is like, yeah, he died for 6 minutes. And I'm like, what? 2 days later, what he said was a little incident.
Which makes sense because I found out about this through Sherry, your massage therapist. And she made it seem like it was like, she was like, oh, he's in the ER. And she thought that I already knew about it. And it makes sense that you wouldn't tell me.
Because I thought it was just a little incident.
It was just a little thing.
I know, until Saturday morning, right when I saw you, an hour earlier, that's when that nurse had said to me that he died.
Right. And then I was like, oh my gosh, this isn't a little, like, this is like a real serious thing, Like, it's just so surprising that it was, that it happened so quick.
Yeah, and he minimized it. And, he kept minimizing it. And so we've gotten definitely closer with the cancer because it's such a big thing that it even when he tries to minimize, it's pretty serious.
Like, you have some, like, sweeter moments, it seems like.
Definitely. Talk about feeling vulnerable.
Yeah.
His macho-ness is slowly going away. And today really took his macho-ness away, which is good because it's okay to need help.
It's okay to rely on others sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in the house too and whatever, and he finally asked for some help. He said, do you think you could go through my medications and make sure I got them all right? Because he's like, my brain isn't the same since dying. What a wimp. You wuss. What kind of excuse is that?
Clearly, he's, what the heck is he doing,
But he was really nice and really appreciative today. And he's like, can you help me? And I helped him. And we did it together as a team.
Yeah.
And he was grateful. And then when I came to podcast, he's like, enjoy yourself, no rush, take your time, where sometimes he's like, why are you always gone, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he knows that I'll be there if he needs me, but if he doesn't need me, I want to do other things like this.
Right. Like, talk to all of you guys.
Like, talk about myself to you guys.
Did you guys hear enough about Mary today? Would you like to hear more?
It pretty much is about me, unless we talk about near-death experiences with Game of Thrones. Then Katie will do all the talking because they were also talking about that.
Yeah,
today.
Travis was here earlier.
And I was like, whatever.
And we were talking about how bad the ending of Game of Thrones was.
Blah,
and I think,
blah, blah.
I think anyone listening will probably agree. It was a bad ending. It was a bad ending. But there was also a lot of near-death experiences on there too, I guess.
Did a lot of people die too, though?
Oh yeah, lots of people died. That's why people liked it, was because they killed off main characters like that.
Whoa.
Like, you didn't know what to expect next. It used to be a great show. I mean, but then they ruined it.
But the ending sucked?
Another topic, yeah. Yeah, not near death related at all, but yeah, used to be the best show out there.
And how many seasons was it on?
8.
8?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, were there books too?
They're not finished yet.
Oh, they're coming. Do you think they're going to change the ending?
They, in theory, they could, because the books were different than, they kind of the show veered off from the books a little bit. So they could very well be a lot different. And hopefully they would be. But I don't think they're ever going to finish. Yeah. It's, he started the first one in the 90s and it still isn't.
Oh, he's not. Okay. Yeah.
And it's taken like 10 years or something like that between the last book until now. So that's totally not related.
Getting back to our topic, though, well, I brought it up, so it's kind of related. It's, but anyway, it really wasn't. So
it's okay.
But
I always like a little bit of pop culture.
Yeah, throw it in there. One final thing that I would like to ask you, what do you think about those books that you read about people that have died and gone to heaven and have come back?
You mean like true stories?
Like true stories. Like there's a book called 90 Minutes in Heaven.
Or Proof of Heaven is
or
another
Proof
one.
of Heaven, that kind of thing. I mean, they all seem similar in their description of heaven.
Yeah.
But
then I also do Google searches of like what does it feel like to die? I've done that before where I've just because I'm curious, and I feel like it's different for everyone. Like some people see that like bright light. They experience what they think of as, heaven. And then some people don't. It's like kind of like Terry, where you just black out.
Nothing. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know. I don't know what to expect from it.
And then you wonder too if people start to imagine, because it is such a scary experience. Okay, so like let's say Terry was more of a histrionic kind of person where everything gets bigger as he tells the story. I could see him starting to be, just convince himself that he actually saw something, but it's more of a suggestion, but he's not like that, so he won't. But if he were a histrionic person, I think he could concoct it. I like reading things like that because
I do too.
It gives me some comfort that people don't just go away, or animals, like they're somewhere.
Yeah. There's hope. I think those are very uplifting stories. I think if people say that that's what they experienced, I find that fascinating, and I hope that's the case.
And how can people that have all this energy in them just be gone? Like, I remember seeing Grandma's corpse. Back to the dark side.
Now we're getting into. Do you know the dark side of like Star Wars reference?
No.
Okay. It's the dark side of the Force, where it's basically Darth Vader. Do you know Darth Vader?
I've heard of Darth Vader.
Okay. Darth Vader is the dark side of the Force, and then like Luke Skywalker and
Heard of him.
They're all Jedis, so they're the good side of the Force.
Okay. What about Princess Leia? Does she
She's
fit in there?
She's also the good side of the Force. Yeah.
I just remember her braids.
Yeah, that
they
is
look
pretty
like these.
distinct. If we were gonna get that dog, we probably would have named her Leia. So.
Really? Because Lando is from Star Wars.
Lando Calrissian is the name of my cat.
Calrissian. Cat as opposed to
Star
Cal.
Wars. Yes,
Calrissian.
instead of Calrissian.
Which I didn't know. I don't know what that is either, but I heard.
Right. Star Wars fans will get it. But
okay. You're going to name it Leia?
We were going to name her Leia, yeah.
Oh, Lando and Leia. It's like Bernie and Bella.
Well, we're not getting the dog, so.
But maybe the next one.
Maybe.
Or another cat.
If we can. Well, that's another story, but.
Yeah.
I don't know if it'll work.
Oh.
That's okay, though.
Anyway, yeah. So, interesting topic, but I do want to go with I guess I really am naturally an optimistic person, because in general, I just think about all that goes right. So when Terry said, "You're scared," I'm like, I'm not scared. You're going to be fine, kind of thing. But then it's like, no, I guess I was scared. But I still feel like, wow, it did the job. We got the defibrillator in.
And
it saved him today, and he's fine, and he's got another day of life, and he's having a good afternoon, and so we really, thinking of every day. I think it'd be interesting to be like, wow, my body just breathed in and out, and it did it again,
and without thinking about it.
I know,
it just does it.
It does it.
Like we're just sitting here breathing. Oh my gosh,
like we're amazing. Because look at all this. And like Grandpa, he like falls over all the time. He has brain bleeds. He has strokes. He has all these issues. And he just gets up and goes again. I mean, certain things, can really go right. Now, obviously, it can go wrong too. Mm-hmm. But I think we only talk about all that goes wrong as opposed to all that goes right on a daily basis. So,
yeah. But I think, I don't know. I like, because near-death experiences happen so often, they deserve to be acknowledged, first of all, but I'm glad that we can kind of see more of the full rounded spectrum of it. Like, it's scary, but there's also a lot of like good things that can come out of it, or
right.
Or you start to realize how lucky you are in some situations and everything. So I think we did okay. We didn't make it too dark.
Not at all. In fact,
we're still on the Jedi side of the Force a little bit.
Okay. Remind me what that is again.
They're the good guys.
Okay.
They're the good side.
Just checking. But yeah, and I do feel like Terry's and my relationship turned a corner today for him to allow me to help him organize his medicine.
After like 30 years.
Yeah, of just being like, I didn't even know what medicine he was on until the last year.
Yeah.
And now I know everything. I know the dosages and I know the order, and I have them in the Monday through Sunday containers, and I got them all organized, and he just let me. That is huge.
Yeah. That is a good thing.
Yeah, and I feel a little bit more like a couple today, like we're a team.
That's good.
Yeah, so see, I'm so glad that happened.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, there's hopeaholic and then there's delusion.
Delusional. I was going to say that, yeah. You're delusional. But I think
gosh.
I think we can wrap it up.
Yeah.
And
Sorry, I was looking at the camera. I was worried that it wasn't recording anymore.
yeah, we got to pay attention to our battery life, but
okay.
so we will we'll see you guys next time.
And I'm going to post that. I'm going to resurrect that article, and then you can put it on the corner.
On the Mary's corner.
Mary's
Sounds good.
pretty corner.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Until next time.
Till next time. Bye-bye.